Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om Param Varishtam Brahmishtam Paramanandarupinam Paramarthanandayatim Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So, after completing the teaching in verse 82, from 83 onwards, Acharya is talking about the result of self-knowledge. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. This is the knowledge. And often it is presented as Aham Brahmasmi knowledge. So a person who has gained this knowledge is called a jnani. And what is the benefit a jnani will get is being described so that those who read the benefits will know the value of self-knowledge and they may have an incentive or a desire to pursue it. Because prayojanam anudishya na mandopi pravartate. Right? Prayojanam anudishya. Without having a benefit in view, without a purpose, nobody will pursue anything. We don't know actually who's said this, but it is quoted in the Shastras very often. And especially with self-knowledge, which involves intellectual exercise, a person may ask, what is the benefit that I get? And the benefit is muktihi, otherwise called mokshaha, right? So, Jivan Mukti Phalam is what we are going to see in the following verses. And interestingly, Swamiji uses an analogy, right? He says, it's like the purpose of this glorification of the Jivan Mukti Phalam is, it's like an advertisement, right? Like you say, buy a TV now for 10,000 rupees and you take a free gift for 10,000. Okay, and the free is in big letters. And in very small letters, it says rest of your life you can repay, right? In installments, lifelong. So similarly, we have to present the Jivan Mukti Phalam in a nice way for people to be attracted and follow, right? Then only the students will get attracted. So then we will write, right, in small letters. This is possible only if you toil going through Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So Vedanta is not about just mere intellectual knowledge. It is, in the sense, it's very practical, right? Because the greatest practical benefit that it gives is, because of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasanam, we have a lot of side benefits of equanimity, mind, being calm, etc., which we will see in Jivan Mukti Phalam topic, right? So let's move on to verse 83. Bhagini, you can chant after me. Brahmatmano shodhitayoho
Brahmatmano shodhitayoho
ekabhavavagahini
ekabhavavagahini
nirvikalpa cha chinmatra
nirvikalpa cha chinmatra
vrittik pragneti katyate
vrittis pragyeti katyate
sustita sa bhavedyasya
susthita sa bhavedyasya
jivan muktasya uchyate.
jivan muktassa uchyate.
So here the Acharya is defining a Jivan Muktaha. This is a topic unique to Advaita Vedanta or primarily found only in Advaita Vedanta. So we alone, Advaita Vedantins alone, talk about liberation in this life itself, right? So the Guru challenges, you can try it, see it for yourself. Whereas in all other systems, especially the other theological systems, they do not accept mukti when one is alive. They say we have to die. That's the first qualification. And then we have to travel. And then we have to go to some other loka. There alone you will get liberation. Whereas Advaita Vedanta is the only one which promises liberation here and now. So that jnani who does worldly transactions as a waker and who enjoys life as a super waker. We saw this in the last class, the waker and super waker, etc. So that waker cum super waker, a two-in-one jnani, is called a Jivan Muktaha. He is in this world, but is never bound by it. So he is in the body, but is never bound even by an old and sick body. Right? So the one who has gone through Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam and has gained Atma Jnanam, in which he is well established, he is in Jnana Nishta. So he is a Sthita Prajna, and initially through Shravanam he gets Jnanam. Right? Vrittihi Prajna iti Katyate. So a very significant and technical line, very, very important line. So self-knowledge has to take place in the form of a thought which arises in the intellect. That means it has to take place during Shravanam. So when the teacher is revealing my real nature and my intellect, right, when it is totally available, right, and the real nature is getting revealed, having gone through, say, Panchakosha Viveka, I have come to this I, the self-evident consciousness principle. And regarding this I, the Guru gives me knowledge. This I, the Sakshi Chaitanyam, is not confined to the body. This Sakshi Chaitanyam is Brahma Chaitanyam. And when the teacher so conveys, I have to receive this knowledge. And at the time of Shravanam itself, I have to claim Aham Brahmasmi. Right? So Vidyaranya says in Panchadashi, Avantarena Vakyena Paroksha Brahmadhir Bhavet Sarvatraiva Mahavakya Vicharatva Parokshadhihi. Right? 769. Those of you who have managed to remember this will immediately connect. Avantarena Vakyena Paroksha Brahmadhir Bhavet. You get to know about Brahman. In Avantara Vakyam, there's a description, right, of Brahman in different ways. Whereas Mahavakya Vichara, that is what gives you Aparoksha Jnanam. That Aham Brahmasmi Jnanam, Aparoksha Jnanam has to take place in the intellect in the form of a thought while doing this inquiry. So, Shravanena Ajnana Nivritihi Jnana Praptihi. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, Vritti Prajna iti Katyate. Vrittihi. The Aham Brahmasmi thought Prajna iti Katyate. Right? So, and what type of vritti? That's a feminine gender word, Strilinga word. Nirvikalpa Chinmatra. Right? A thought in which these two words, Aham and Brahma, even though two words are there, they do not refer to two separate things, right? It is just the one on indivisible, all-pervading consciousness. Therefore, it is called Nirvikalpaka Vritti Jnanam. A Vritti Jnanam in which subject-object duality is not there. Aham and Brahman duality is not there. So, Nirvikalpa means division less, right? So, and Chinmatra of the nature of consciousness, right? So, Brahman means what? It is not referring to the Anatma because through the Lakshana, we have removed the Maya component, right? We've also removed the Shariratrayam component of the Jiva. So, the Vritti here is referring to the self-evident, all-pervading, self-luminous consciousness. Chinmatra. Chidvishaya, Chidakara, which is referring to the indivisible consciousness without objectification. So I'm not looking for or looking at consciousness. I'm just referring to that consciousness because of which alone I am conscious of this vritti also. Therefore, Nirvikalpa cha Chinmatra vritti. That is Aham Brahmasmi vritti. That is called vritti jnanam. And how does it happen? Shodhitayoho Brahma Atmanoho. Shodhitayoho. After inquiring into the meaning of Brahman and Atman, referred to by the words Tat and Tvam, right? Shodhita, filtering. We saw this earlier. Refining. The awareness which is filtered of its upadhi. The upadhi has been taken out, all the dressing up. We discussed this at length. So nirupadika chaitanyam, the undressed Ishvara and Jiva. So shodhitayoho brahma atmanoho ekabhava avagahini. And this vritti jnanam is seeing their non-difference, right? Ekabhava avagahini. Avagahini means grasping that, right? In short, a vritti which grasps the non-divisible, indivisible, basically in and out, all-pervading consciousness. Thus, Aham Brahmasmi Vritti Jnanam is called Prajna, right? Okay, fine. We've understood this, right? Knowledge alone will not give me Jivan Muktihi, right? You should not stop at Shravanam. Why? We have to find time for Mananam and then later for Nididhyasanam. We require this quality time and an unpreoccupied mind so that we can dwell on this subject. Just you will gain the knowledge in Shravanam, yes? And giving excuses, right? Saying, I don't have time, I'm in a busy job, etc., right? These excuses you can tell yourself, you can tell your guru, you can tell your other students, because you want to find excuses to say, okay, you're not attending the class on some day, etc. But we must remember that the Shastra or the Guru Parampara doesn't lose anything. The benefit is going to be lost by the person if they don't find time for this, right? And this knowledge should be freed from twofold obstacles. First obstacle is called intellectual doubts. Second obstacle is viparita bhavana, right? The habitual thinking. The first one is doubt. The second one is habitual thinking. So samshaya and viparyaya. These are two obstacles because of which we don't derive the benefit of jnanam. Yasya sa sthustita bhaved. And the one who has made that jnanam, right? The antakarana vritti is here called prajna. It's a feminine gender word again. Free from these two obstacles by practicing mananam and nididhyasanam, whoever has completed the process of jnana yoga and is naturally abiding in the truth, in that vritti, right? Such a person doesn't require any more nididhyasanam thereafter. It is always there. Exactly like the tambura shruti is there always when you're singing music, right? So, Pashyan, Shinvan, Sprishan, Jigran, in and through all the worldly transactions, right? I have that behind me, that I am the Atma. So, I will avoid anatma obsessions, right? And Swamiji gives this beautiful example, like a cyclist, right? He's riding on a cycle and like a gymnast doing whatever he wants. But he is able to maintain the cycle and he's not constantly aware of the center of gravity and how he has to balance, etc. It's a second nature, right? When he's riding. So Jivan Mukta Uchyate, such a person who has unobstructed knowledge, such a person is called Jivan Muktaha. So the word muktihi means freedom or dropping, and word much in Sanskrit means to give up or to drop. So we generally translate it as freedom. Naturally, the question will come, freedom from what? Then we say freedom from bondage, otherwise called samsara, bandhat muktihi or bandasya muktihi, samsarat muktihi, from samsara. So freedom from samsara, dropping of samsara. Now, what is bandha? Now we saw all that, right? Ko nama bandha, katamesha agataha. Acharya actually answered the questions from verses 39 to 42. So both bondages and their cause we saw. So the primary bondage or samsara is intellectual bondage. Intellectual samsara is original and it is fundamental. What is intellectual bondage? Very simple. Self-ignorance leading to self-misconception, concluding intellectually that I am the body-mind complex, this shariratrayam. I am the finite mortal individual. This intellectual conclusion or self-misconception which happens in the intellect is the primary bondage. So thus Shankaracharya described that this bondage, a sense of limitation, apurnatvam, leads to kama, krodha, avidya, and karma, etc. Right? So it's a cyclical thing, sequential. So thus desire, attachment, hatred, and all emotional problems are a consequence of this self-ignorance and self-misconception. So they are not original samsara. So the emotional samsara is basically a product of the intellectual samsara. Thus, we have samsara experience both at the intellectual level and the emotional level. Intellectual samsara is karanam and emotional samsara is karyam, right? Now, those of you who did Taittiriya Upanishad, Taittiriya Ananda Mimamsha, that's Brahmanandavalli, you saw that, right? Shrotriyasya cha akamaha tasya, the one who is desireless, the one who is attachmentless, that person, we might think, oh my God, poor guy, doesn't have anything, etc. But when we look at a sannyasi, without any possession, without any gadget, right? We might think, the world might think he's, oh, miserable, missing all this, right? But he says, I am the happiest person. Therefore, Vairagyam can give greater and greater experiential joy. So Vedanta goes on to say, with this Vairagyam, when you finally gain self-knowledge, that very knowledge gives joy because the knowledge is, I am not a dot in the world, right? I'm not an insignificant person. I am the infinite Brahman. From me, the world arises. Everything belongs to me, right? I don't lack anything. I don't miss anything. There is no wanting mind, right? So there is Purnatvam. So Jnanam itself gives Ananda. So thus Jnanam and Vairagyam gives an inner joy. I not only enjoy happiness, but I clearly understand that only source of happiness is me, myself. In fact, I do not look for happiness outside, right? So, Eshosya parama ananda etasya ivanandasya jnani bhutani matram upajivanti, right? So, in Swayanjyoti Brahmana, we see this. Jnani says, my all-pervading ananda alone is now and then getting reflected in the miserable things the individuals are running after. So when they jump with joy during parties, etc., basically it is I who am giving that happiness. Therefore, Jnani gets twofold advantage, an emotional freedom and emotional joy. So very interesting that in Taittiriya Upanishad, gradually several lokas and several levels of Ananda are compared, right? And then it talks about the Vairagyam of the Jnani being the superior most. It keeps on multiplying in units of 100 actually. Right? 100 units of Ananda at each level. So such a Jnani, he is not an emotional slave of the world, right? Since he has reduced his Ragadvesha and he has made his Ragadvesha non-binding. That means it's just a preference. So that freedom from emotional slavery gives him a calm mind and an undisturbed, right, mind, which is not disturbed by the upheavals of the world. So, samadukka sukaswastaha, samaloshtasma kanchanaha, tulya priya priyo dhiraha, tulya nindatma samstutihi. We saw this in the Gita 14th chapter. And manapamanayos tulyaha, tulyo mitrari pakshayoho. So the world is pair of opposites, right? And in a state of flux also. But he is not an emotional slave of that because of Vairagyam. And he doesn't depend on worldly Ananda because the worldly Ananda is replaced by another type of Ananda, the Samatvam, right? So, Bahya Sparsheshva Saktatma Vindatyatmani Yatsukam Sabrahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukamakshayam Ashnute, right? In the 5th chapter. So, one whose mind is not engaged in external object attains that Ananda which is in the Atma. And he whose mind is engaged in the meditation of Brahman attains lasting Ananda. So that person with Jnanam and Vairagyam who is not dependent on Bhakya Sparsha, sensory Ananda, that person has got an indigenous happiness that is not subject to any external interventions or sanctions, right? We cannot say, I won't give you happiness, etc. Because the Jnani doesn't need somebody else to give that happiness, right? So with relatives, okay, if you're here, fine. If with people, if you're here, fine. If you're not there also, fine. That is the attitude of the jnani, right? And he has got samatvam. Not only he has got samatvam because he's got vairagyam, he has also got infinite internal joy available for tapping. Whenever he wants, he can tap into it, right? So, yastmat marati revasyat atmatriptascha manavaha atmanyevacha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. We saw all this in Gita, right? So, samatvam is his emotional condition. Inner joy is available for tapping. The emotional freedom and emotional joy that a jnani enjoys, right? That is what is talked about here. And it is described in manifold ways in the scriptures as Jivan Mukti, because then only alone people will understand peace and joy, samatvam and ananda, etc. This understanding is freedom from intellectual and emotional samsara. This is Jivan Mukti, right? Let us continue. Yasya sthita bhavet prajna.
Yasya sthita bhavet prajna.
Yasyanando nirantaraha.
Yasyanando nirantaraha.
Prapancho vismrita prayaha.
Prapancho vismrita prayaha.
Sajivan mukta ishyate.
Sajivan mukta ishyate.
So, a Jivan Mukta is one whose wisdom is well established, right? Yasya prajna sthita bhavet, which means he is freed from both doubt and habitual thinking pattern or viparita bhavana, because he has done mananam and nididhyasanam. So initially, very important points here. Initially, he has to maintain that by regular nididhyasanam, right? This is a very beautiful journey. First, you start with japa. Then you start with Saguna Rupa Ishvara Dhyanam, like say Ratnai Kalpita, Shiva Manasa Stotram, etc. Then, once you study, the Jnana Yoga path, you go through it, you study, you attend classes, etc. And the teaching is clear to you. Then you get into Nididhyasana. You practice Nididhyasana. Now, what it says is, initially, he has to maintain this thought by regular Nididhyasanam. Then the frequency of Nididhyasanam required will become lesser and lesser. Initially, I have to remember, say, thrice a day, like Sandhya Vandanam. Thereafter, once a day, once a week, once a month. Ultimately, he does not require any exclusive Nididhyasanam. That state is called Sahaja Samadhi. So, the one who is ever aware of this teaching, which teaching? Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. Thereafter, he does not require any sadhana. He is a Siddha Purushaha. So that person is called a Jivan Mukta because firstly, he is free from intellectual samsara. He knows this I am small feeling is not there. I will die soon. What will I do in my old age, arrival of old age? All those don't perturb him at all. And then Yasya Anandaha Nirantaraha, the one who has got permanent happiness available for tapping. So he taps whenever an occasion requires because different occasions require different responses. For instance, when there is a sad situation in the family, somebody is lost and you're visiting them, right? And you can't say, oh, I am Ananda Swarupaha. It is inappropriate. Therefore, that Ananda is unmanifested that time. It is available, but a jnani being an individual with all the emotions and feelings intact, he's not feeling less, right? He has to empathize and share others' joy. At the time, when he has to share joy, he will invoke joy. When there is a sad occasion, he empathizes with them, shares their sadness also. He feels their sadness also, and he gives them that help, sympathy, compassion, etc. So, Adveshta Sarvabhutanam Maitrak Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankaraha Samadukka Sukhaha Kshami. So, we should know that Jnani does not destroy the emotions or the emotional faculty of the mind, right? That he doesn't do. We should not lose that compassion, right? And the emotive mind. It's an asset. If Jnanam removes that, then we should not go after Jnanam. We should continue to be human, right? That is what a Jnani does. He doesn't even talk about Jnanam. Actually, that's another sign of maturity. So if you're still talking about jnanam in your normal life, then it also means that you have to remind yourself constantly. A jnana nishta is most often you'll see moving in society without even talking about it, right? Only when somebody asks for that knowledge, he or she will talk about it, right? So like any other person, he will just move about in the world. So Shankaracharya writes Jivan Mukta Ananda Lahari, right? 28 verses. How a jnani moves with all and brings forth all emotions according to the requirement. Very beautiful set of shlokas. You can take a look at it later. And once he comes to himself in privacy, he's not an emotional wreck, though he deals with so many people, right? So, yasya ananda nirantaraha, meaning he's got all the ananda. It is either in unmanifest form or in manifest form. So, sometimes he'll keep smiling. It's like sometimes he will just keep quiet also, but it is available always for tapping. So, Atmananda is always available. Prapanchaha vismrita prayaha. The world is almost forgotten, right? Here, almost forgotten. We should understand properly because if he is a grihastha jnani, he doesn't remember the family, spouse, and children. No, that is not the idea. There is no obsession. The world does not occupy the mind, especially the worlds of likes and dislike, raga dvesha, causing emotional turbulence. So when he sits for meditation, if family affairs take the center stage, then he cannot meditate, right? That is called obsession. So world is not outside and world starts occupying the mind, right? Vismrita prayaha means he doesn't allow the world to occupy the mind all the time, right? So it is not an object of obsession. Family is not an object of obsession for him. That's why in old age, right, then after all this, one can again come to Vedanta because that is the only thing that is permanent. People will come and go. In old age, what happens? More time is available. People do not want contact. At that time, right, you can spend all the time in the jnana yoga path, right? Or remember, or recollecting, or in nididhyasanam, right? So what Swamiji refers to as the federal problem hits you, right? As you grow older. FE standing for fear, DE meaning depression, RE means regrets of the past, and L is loneliness, right? So once we come to Vedanta, these problems are not there. All the time is available. So in Sadhana Panchakam, very beautiful set of shlokas, it said, Ekante sukamasyatam paratare chetas samadhiyatam purnatma susamikshatam jagaditam tad badhitam drishyatam प्राक्कर्म प्रविलाप्यतां चितिबलान्नाप्युत्तरैः श्लिष्यतां प्रारब्धं त्विह भुज्यताम् अथ parabrahmatmana sthiyatam. So it is not basically loneliness, it is aloneness, right? Which is what hits. And you are always Advaitam at that time, forced Advaitam. Therefore, Prapanchaha Vismritaya Prayaha, he does not worry about people not coming, not talking, right? Not calling over phone. Everything is fine, right? They are just busy and we don't, this such a jnani doesn't get obsessed to. Saha Jivan Muktaha Ishyate. He is considered a Jivan Muktaha. So, Yasya Sthita Bhavet Prajna, Yasyanando Nirantaraha, Prapancho Vismrita Prayaha Sajivan Mukta Ishyate. So, Vartamanepi Dehesmin
वर्तमानेऽपि देहेऽस्मिन्
Chaya Vadanuvartini
छायावदनुवर्तिनि
Ahanta Mamata Bhavaha
अहन्ता ममता भावः
Jivan Muktasya Lakshanam.
जीवन्मुक्तस्य लक्षणम्.
Please note that this Chaya Vadanuvartini, I think till now when we were chanting, this was me because I found the typo only today as I was preparing the slides, and so I actually re-recorded the video today. So just make a note that this is small ni. because it is Saptami Vibhakti, we'll get into it, and so it cannot be Dirgha Ni. So a Jivan Mukta is one who is alive. Because Prarabdha will continue even after Jnanam. Very important point. A Jivan Mukta is very much called a Jivan Mukta when he is alive. Right? Because the Prarabdha will continue. The body's conditions are governed by Prarabdha Karma. Not only for our present activity, but Prarabdha also influences the condition of the body, how we grow old, whether we'll get diseases, etc. Right? So Prarabdha Papam is also there, Punyam is also there. Jnani might not do any papam now, but the previous ones may fructify, right? Creating physical problems also. Thus, the body can be an asset, the body can be a liability also. So, everything in this world can be both an asset and a liability. So, a body of a jnani also goes through such experiences. And even though he doesn't have Vishesha Abhimanaha over the body, he doesn't have any special attachment. Because of Prarabdha, there is Samanya Abhimanaha. Therefore, biological pains, etc., will be there. But he does not have the conclusion that I am the body-mind complex. Therefore, the emotional content is taken away from the biological pain. So, it doesn't affect him emotionally. Very important point. He says, Asmin Dehe Vartamane Api. Even though the body, the three bodies, including Karana Shariram, continues, Vartamane Api. It does continue. Chayavat anuvartini. But this body cannot be physically kept aside. So if there is some object which is causing problem, I can keep that physically aside and move on. But the physical body is what? Like a shadow. Anuvartini dehe. So the body continues, right? So anuvartin shabda, that is nakaranta pullingaha, and saptami it will be anuvartini. Right? Adjective to deha, dehe. Also throughout ahanta, mamata, abhavaha. But he doesn't have any ahankara and doesn't claim I am the body, or mamakara claiming I am the owner of the body, etc. Because the moment ahankara, mamakara, ragadvesha, etc. will flare up. The minute aham and mama comes, byproduct is raga and dvesha, and they will start flaring. So why is my body getting old? It doesn't matter. Everybody has to get old. Why am I getting this disease, etc. Right? It's a natural phenomenon. So then I will start complaining about aham, mama, raga, dvesha, the dushta chatushtayam. So in Nididhyasanam, a jnani has deliberately removed the dushta chatushtayam. Ahankara, mamakara, raga, dvesha. You must remember this. So through Nididhyasanam, this is what we are diluting and removing. Therefore, he is very objective with regard to his own body, and he understands that this is the law of the world. It is not worth complaining. Complaining only will exaggerate the pain. Therefore, ahanta, mamata, abhavaha. Right? So, there is no emotional content in his biological pain. He may not be able to smile because he has pain. He may groan, he may moan, right? But he knows that the body is going through this problem and it will also pass away one day. Therefore, he has either joy, like he's like kind of his samatvam, equanimous to whatever is happening. He's got that inner peace because of ahankara, mamakara, ragadvesha, abhava. Right? Such a person is a jivan mukta. He can gracefully grow old, and when people gracefully grow old, the people who look after will also find it easy to manage them, right? Otherwise, not only the old people suffer, but the caretakers around them, the family also suffers, right? When they go through it and they start silently praying for when will that person actually pass away, right? So as a Jivan Mukta, our presence will be their joy and not a burden. So in verse 83, Shankaracharya said, the one who has gone through all the three exercises becomes a Sthita Prajna, right? So he reaps the result of this knowledge, which is Jivan Muktihi, or liberation even while alive. And here Jivan Mukti is explained. So Jivan Mukti is freedom from samsara, and samsara is of two types. We saw that from verses 39 to 42. And we talked about intellectual samsara, which is the primary and basic misconception. Then we also talked about emotional samsara, and with Jivan Mukti is basically freedom from both intellectual and emotional samsara, right? So we talked about in Katham Vimokshaha, right? We talked about two stages of spiritual sadhana, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. It's a very important point, and therefore I thought, I should speak about this. Now, Dvaita Bhakti itself can considerably reduce emotional samsara, right? It's a takeaway point, which is very important. Karma Yoga. So, Karma Yoga itself can reduce emotional samsara, but not the intellectual type, but the emotional samsara or the emotional problems. So, Karma Yoga, along with Dvaita Bhakti, can reduce considerably the emotional problems. But we have to understand a little bit now that we have come this far in this learning, and we've also gone through Gita, right? When we say Dvaita Bhakti, Karma Yoga includes Dvaita Bhakti meaning devotion or worship of the Lord. We maintain the difference between Bhagavan and Bhakta, the deity and the devotee. So that Dvaitam or duality is maintained, right, in Dvaita Bhakti. But what happens is very important. There are 2 points that we must note. What type of Dvaita Bhakti goes along with Karma Yoga? So the question we should answer keeping the 7th chapter of Gita in mind. What is that? 4 types of Bhakti were discussed there, right? Chaturvida bhajante maam jana sukriti norjuna arthor jignasurartharti jnani cha bharatarshava, right? Artha Bhakta, Artharthi Bhakta, Jignasu Bhakta, and Jnani Bhakta. Of these, the 4th one, Jnani Bhakta, is not relevant for Karma Yoga or Karma Yogi at all because he's a Jnani. So, Jnani Bhakta is an Advaita Bhakta, right? He's not coming under the Dvaita Bhakti. So, the other three, basically Artha, Artharthi, and Jignasu Bhakta, or all three, whatever Bhakti they have is Dvaita Bhakti, in which the Bhakta remembers and retains Advaita Jnanam, right, on one side. But then Advaita Jnana Sahitam, he has Dvaita Bhakti also, right? So he's got both. Like the Bhakta has got Advaita Jnanam, but he worships the Lord. In the case of Jnani, the Jnani worships the Lord not as a samsari, but a asamsari. He's not a samsari in the case of Jnani. Whereas in the case of Dvaita Bhakti, the Jnani, the person is not a Jnani, so he worships with something else in mind, right? In Dvaita Bhakti. So what happens? In the case of Jnani, he is grateful to God for giving the scriptures, Guru, and the opportunity to gain Advaita Jnana. So it's more like gratitude towards the Lord. That is Jnani's Bhakti, right? For having given this. So the Namaskara is in gratitude. And so therefore that is not relevant in the context of Karma Yoga. So for a Karma Yogi, the other 3 Bhaktis, Artha, Artharthi, and Jignasu Bhaktis are clean Dvaita Bhaktis. And very important point, Artha and Artharthi Bhakti are called Sakama Bhakti. Why? We saw this in Gita. In the case of Artha Bhakti, right from childhood, we are taught, oh, you're scared, you pray to this God. When there's lightning, we say, oh, you pray to the God, God will take care of you, right? So we inculcate that in a child. So when I am suffering, I need to go to the Lord and the Lord will protect me. God will protect me. Ishvara will protect me. So that is Artha Bhakti. And as we mature, Artharthi Bhakti, oh, if I get through this exam, I will do Nutyat 108 for the Pradakshanams. That is Artharthi Bhakti, right? Or if I get married, I'll come 7 times to this temple, or I'll come to Nitya Kalyana Perumal temple. Those are all Artharthi Bhakti. Success in business, praying for that, and then repaying in a different form. So, and then you come to Jignasu Bhakti. What happens? Now, in Artha and Artharthi, they are Sakama Bhakti, in which a Bhakti demands something from the Lord. So, the very Namaskara brings out various demands, and they are dictated by the powerful Raga Dvesha, likes and dislikes, right? In the case of Artha and Artharthi, right? Very important. So a Sakama Bhakta is under the spell of Raga Dvesha, indicated by the demands that he makes to the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, if a person is a spiritual seeker and he starts as a karma yogi, then he should note that Sakama Bhakti or Dvaita Sakama Bhakti or Sakama Dvaita Bhakti is incompatible with karma yoga, because in Sakama Bhakti one is under the spell of Raga Dvesha. So Lord Krishna wants every spiritual seeker never be dominated by Raga Dvesha, especially during Bhakti. And very strong warning is given, right? Indriyasya ragadvesho vyavastito tayor navasham agachet tauhyasya paripantino. Tayor navasham agachet. Never allow ragadvesha to dominate you, because dominating ragadvesha is an obstacle to spiritual growth. Tauhi asya paripantino. So they will perpetuate samsara, especially emotional samsara. As long as ragadvesha dominates, worries will continue, fears will continue. Therefore, Ragadvesha dominated Sakama Bhakti, the demanding Bhakti, is an obstacle to spiritual growth. Therefore, a Karma Yogi should avoid Artha Bhakti, should avoid Artharthi Bhakti, and he should take to the third one, which is Jignasu Bhakti, the spiritual seeker's Bhakti, which is Nishkama Bhakti. And the Nishkama Bhakta remembers Bhagavan's warning. So when he practices Bhakti, he will not allow Ragadvesha to dominate and create demands. When he does Namaskara, Ragadvesha will pressurize him, demand this, demand that, right? Pressure will be there. As a spiritual seeker, remembering Bhagavan's warning, he must resist the pressure, right? And even though one may tend to demand things from the Lord, pressurized by Ragadvesha, which dominates his conscious mind, he would still say, the Jignasu Bhakta, I will not demand. I will clearly express to the Lord, I don't want to demand. I want to follow your teachings. I want to spiritually grow. Therefore, I don't want to demand. I have no demands from you. I've come here and I give you a promise that I will follow your teaching. What is that teaching? Yadyad bhavyam bhavatu bhagavan purva karmanu rupam. Right? Let whatever has to happen as per the law of karma, let it happen. My responsibility is not demanding, but doing whatever I have to do. I will discharge my responsibilities and duty, but you are the karma phaladata. And as karma phaladata, it is your prerogative to give me karma phalam. It may be sukham, it may be dukkham. So, sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo. I'm ready to welcome anything as your prasada, no resistance, right? So, for me, whatever you give is prasada. Whatever comes, I will not put a sticker on saying this is good, that is bad, etc. I will accept whatever comes. So if I practice Jignasu Bhakti, Nishkama Bhakti, and clearly tell the Lord I have no demand, whatever experience you give, I will gladly accept. If I say this, resisting the pressure of Ragadvesha, I am coming out of their spell. So the teaching and my free will are becoming stronger than the Ragadvesha. So in Sakama Bhakti, very important point, my will succumbs to Ragadvesha. In Nishkama Bhakti, my will overpowers Ragadvesha, and this overpowering of Ragadvesha, that is pressurizing demands, right? That is called Vairagya. Through my free will. So it is not fate, see here. So my will, I am able to use that to overcome the Ragadvesha. So that is Vairagyam. So Nishkama Bhakti promotes Vairagyam, and as even Vairagyam becomes stronger and stronger, every day I start with the prayer, Yadyad Bhavyam Bhavatu Bhagavan Purva Karmanu Rupam. So whatever you give me, it is fine, right? So in short, Nishkama Bhakti promotes Vairagyam, Sakama Bhakti promotes Ragadvesha. So the single biggest takeaway for all of us is, we have to be a Jignasu Bhakta when we have chosen to be on this path, if we want to grow, right, in this spiritual journey. That is the underlying message. Then comes Jnani Bhakti, right, Jnani Bhakta. So when Ragadvesha dominates, emotional problems overwhelm, and when Vairagyam dominates, there is emotional freedom. So there is no more emotional turbulence. So ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavasher videyatma prasadam adhigacchati. So the Nishkama Bhakta, the Karma Yogi, attains twofold prasada, right? So a karma yogi, Nishkama Bhakta gets an external prasada, and the second meaning is mental tranquility. External prasada is whatever prasada you get, and then of course the mental tranquility. That is the phalam, the result, and you also get the equanimous mind. So thus Karma Yoga and Dvaita Bhakti can go hand in hand, provided Dvaita Bhakti is Nishkama Dvaita Bhakti. So this is a very important point. So Vairagya Janaka Nishkama Dvaita Bhakti will reduce emotional samsara considerably. So I can maintain samatvam, and even without Advaita Jnanam, I may not even have studied Vedanta. I don't even know what is Mahavakyam, Ajahati Lakshana, etc. Right? Even without that, by practicing Karma Yoga with Dvaita Bhakti, the Nishkama way, right? And if I follow Lord Krishna's instructions, that itself is a big step forward. It's an aside note, but a very, very important point. Right? So, therefore, only before starting the topic of Karma Yoga in the second chapter, Lord Krishna strongly criticizes Sakama Bhakti and Sakama Bhakta. I don't know whether you all remember this set of shlokas, 3 sets of shlokas. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitaha vedavadaratav partha nanyadastiti vadinaha. It goes on up to vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhauna vidiyate. Right? So, he says a Sakama Bhakta, a demanding Bhakta, will never be spiritually successful. They won't gain Atma Jnanam. They will not get Jnana Nishta. They won't get peace of mind also. Right? Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtikim. Whereas a karma yogi gets shantihi, whereas ayukta kamakarena phale sakto nipadyate. The artha and artharthi bhakta will never have peace. So the message then is ragadvesha promotes emotional samsara and vairagyam promotes emotional liberation. Therefore, whenever we talk about emotional liberation of a jnani, remember that it is not the jnanam that contributes to his emotional liberation. It is the vairagyam which he has got before knowledge that gives him this emotional liberation. And the same vairagyam alone gets reinforced by jnanam. So without vairagyam, you will actually not see much of benefit. So the vairagyam acquired before jnanam and the vairagyam reinforced after jnanam are responsible for the emotional liberation of a Jivan Mukta. So Jnanam is directly responsible for intellectual liberation because he has no more self-ignorance or self-misconception. It is that freedom that Jnanam gives. However, for Jnani's emotional tranquility, the Samatvam, the credit should go to Vairagyam. Therefore, if I have studied Vedanta and yet continue to have emotional problems, I should know the diagnosis, where to look for the problem, right? How I have knowledge. I know Jahati Lakshana, I know Ajahati Lakshana, I know Bhagatyaga Lakshana, all of them. Then I have only intellectual knowledge. The knowledge will be only intellectual. It won't give Jivan Mukti. What I lack is Vairagyam. I am allowing Ragadvesha to dominate. Jnanam is on one side, Ragadvesha domination is on the other hand. This diagnosis I don't make normally. I keep thinking there is some other cause. No, it is just this, right? And the Ragadvesha delusion happens only through Nishkama Bhakti and in Nididhyasanam, constantly dwelling on this, right? Pancha Kosha Viveka, Pancha Anatma Viveka, all of that, right? We just think that, oh, some mysterious, mystical experience is lacking in our jnanam, right? And some others think, oh my God, I'm a grihastha. So that's why, because I've not taken sannyasa, Lord Krishna clearly says it's not the ashrama that matters, right? He says, Neyasya nitya sannyasi yonadveshti na kankshati. Right? Anybody in any ashrama is a sannyasi if only he has conquered the domination of ragadvesha, yonadveshti na kankshati. That grihastha has vairagyam developed through nishkama bhakti. So if I study Vedanta, I will get emotional liberation even before the study becomes successful. And that emotional liberation will continue, right? So I will get intellectual liberation also, which is freedom from self-ignorance and self-misconception also. So Karma Yoga and Dvaita Bhakti, net, what is the takeaway? Will give emotional liberation, provided that the Dvaita Bhakti is Vairagyam producing Nishkama Bhakti. And here Ajivan Mukta is described, right? So we should remember that this Jivan Mukta is one who has gained Vairagyam before as a part of Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti and has further reinforced his Vairagyam through Jnanam. With that, he enjoys Jivan Mukti, and therefore every description here refers to either intellectual liberation, freedom from intellectual samsara, or emotional liberation, right? So you should know when to give credit to Jnanam and when to give credit to Vairagyam, because both play prominent roles. Vartamanepi dehesmin
वर्तमानेऽपि देहेऽस्मिन्
छायावदनुवर्तिनि.
छायावदनुवर्तिनि.
Again, typo here.
Same.
Ahanta mamata bhavaha
अहन्ता ममता भावः
Jivan muktasya lakshanam. We already chanted this.
मुक्तस्य लक्षणम्.
Okay. So here basically we are talking about freedom from self-ignorance and self-misconception at the intellectual level. He has got no misconception now. In fact, he doesn't wait for liberation. He doesn't seek liberation after death. He knows, I am Nitya Muktaha, right? Others call me Jivan Muktaha. Others will talk about future Videha Mukti. As far as I am concerned, I am Nitya Muktaha. Even when this body is there, the body will go through its prarabdha situations. He has got samanya abhimana, which is caused by the prarabdha, but vishesha abhimana is not there, which is due to raga dvesha. Therefore, the bodily problems he will never conclude as his own or my own problems. Body will have problems, but I do not have them. This is Jivan Muktasya Lakshanam and the indication of a Jivan Mukti. Right? So what we'll do is we'll stop here and we'll continue in the next class. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, any questions? I know we had some problem logging in today. I will check what was the issue. Anybody has any comments, questions? Okay. Yeah, you would have noticed that the meditation verses have gone up. You can use them if you want. It's a beautiful set of verses in just two different meters so that you can use it for Nididhyasanam in case you want to use it. So we will stop today's class here and we will catch up next week. Next week, Sunday. That's 4th August. Dhanyavadaha.